Just how serious is the situation in Idlib?
It's extremely serious. So the United Nations is not making a fine point of this. It's saying that if fighting does start, if the Syrian army does press ahead with its suggested attack on Idlib province, that as many as 700,000 people could be forced to flee. And there's only one direction in which they can flee, and that is into Turkey. So the Turks are extremely alarmed about this possibility as well. Remember, this northwestern province of Syria, Idlib, is relatively small. It's mostly rural. Its population has doubled during the last few years of warfare in Syria, from around 1.5 to 3 million. So about 1.5 million are internally displaced people, extremely vulnerable, and as I was saying before, with nowhere else to go. That really is the essential problem. We know what sort of tactics the Syrian army will use if they do decide to go for broke and try to crush the opposition there. We've seen what they've done in Ghouta, we've seen what they've done in Aleppo. They will use the most barbaric methods to crush the opposition, regardless of civilian casualties. And the concentration of refugees, of internally displaced people in Idlib is so high at the moment that the fear is that the consequences, the humanitarian consequences, will be appalling.
Right, well, in the meantime, Donald Trump has, of course, warned against what he says would be a reckless strike. If that were to happen, would the US respond?
I think it's extremely unlikely. We heard in the last 24 hours Donald Trump saying that, you know, if there's a slaughter in Idlib, the world will be extremely angry, and the United States will be extremely angry as well. But if that's as far as it goes, I don't think Russia or Iran or Syria are going to be holding their breath. The United States has warned that if there's a chemical weapons attack on the opposition in Idlib, that would be a red line as far as the United States is concerned, and it might respond. But I think it's extremely unlikely that the Syrian armed forces are going to use chemical weapons and take that risk. And the pressure from Russia to prevent them doing that will be enormous. So I think most of what we're hearing from the United States, from Donald Trump, is huffing and puffing that there's very little likely that the United States is going to do. It's going to be on the sidelines, as it has been for the last year or so, watching what happens.
Well, Russia and Iran and, of course, the Syrian government say that they're going to root out a hotbed of terrorism or a nest of terrorism. Yeah. Is it as simple as that, Rob?
No, I don't think it is quite as simple as that. There's no doubt that there is a concentration of terrorists in Idlib province, and in that sense, Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, is correct. It is a festering sore, as he has put it. But there are probably somewhere in the region of 10,000 hardcore jihadist fighters from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is the reincarnation of the al-Nusra Front, which is itself was the Syrian version of al-Qaeda. That is certainly a body of fighters which is recognized by almost everybody as terrorists. But in addition to them, there are thousands of more opposition fighters which have been supported, supplied, trained by the United States and other Western groups, including Turkey as well, which the Turks are insisting is a completely different kettle of fish and has to be regarded as completely different. Whether the Turks can persuade, or this big summit coming up in Tehran on Friday, which the Turkish president will be there with the Iranian and Russian presidents. If Turkey can persuade them to give the Turks time to try and find some sort of compromise is the big issue at the moment. But that's something that the Turks are particularly concerned about, because the last thing they want is a big upsurge in fighting on its border.
OK, Rob Parsons.